The Steve Gruber Show often results in extended periods of American pride, American optimism, and uncontrollable enthusiasm about America's future. Kicking off the live broadcast day at Real America's Voice, MTN, and reaching a growing global audience, this is the Steve Gruber Show. A no panic zone. Thank you for being here. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, a top U.S. hospital is the target of an ad campaign calling it out for its extreme woke positions and policies. We'll tell you who. Number two, Apple is racing to secure manufacturing of its iPhone and other products, and it looks like Vietnam may land the big contracts, at least in the near future, as they are working a deal with President Trump. And number three, the Trump administration not playing games when it comes to your safety and the safety of all American citizens, as evidenced by the very effective meeting between President Trump and El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, on Monday. The meeting highlighted the partnership between the two countries in locking up violent criminals that have been living in this country illegally. But that's not all the meeting accomplished. It also set the record straight regarding the deportation of a Salvadoran gang member that the media has painted as a Maryland father and basically a victim of the Trump administration. For instance, here's the headline from the New York Times: what to know about the mistaken deportation of a Maryland man to El Salvador. At the meeting between Trump and Bukele, the media wanted to really dig into that story, at least some did, and I think they bit off more than they could chew, because listen to Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller's explanation. We start there. Listen.
You know, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So we had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
Yeah, that's something they don't mention. They don't want them in your neighborhood. They don't want to be in. They don't want them in their own neighborhood. And that, my friends, is how you handle hostile media. Crush them with irrefutable facts. Miller directed the so-called journalists in the room to ask President Bukele about the man's future. President Bukele didn't miss a beat either when called upon. Here he is.
President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always
how can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? And that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people.
Two immigration courts found him to be a member of MS-13. He's not a citizen of the United States. Not ours to deal with. President Trump really having the time of his life, calling a spade, but President Bukele really framed this entire spectacle exactly as he should. Is the media really asking the Salvadoran president to smuggle in a terrorist that belongs in El Salvador, who's an El Salvador citizen? You want to smuggle him back to the United States. It's absurd. Totally absurd, in fact. The media wants to make this about following the rule of law and obeying the courts, but Secretary of State Marco Rubio straightened that talking point right out, real quick. Here he is.
I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
End of story. At least it should be. It won't be, of course. These district court judges think that they can issue injunctions nationwide. And again, I go back to this easy example. Can you imagine, Mr. President, I'm sorry, but a district court judge has issued a stay and an injunction, and your Emancipation Proclamation will not be allowed to take effect because a district judge in Alabama said so. End of story, like I said. But I think the media is going to beat this dead horse as long as it can. What else do they have? Fortunately, we've got Stephen Miller here running circles around them. One last clip I need to play on this story. Enjoy it.
Do you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order? Do you know the difference? Any of you, please. Do you?
Well, we're not in the government.
But you couldn't even spend 72 hours over the weekend learning the distinction, even though you've been writing and talking about it this whole time. Everyone just raise this, please. Just raise your hand. Does any of you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order?
Anybody. Point is, they don't know what they're talking about. They're crying and kicking and screaming and carrying on about something they don't know anything about. Unbelievable, but he's exactly right. It's embarrassing that these people call themselves journalists, trying to spin a story they know nothing about, and their excuse is, well, we're not in government. It's their job to understand government if you're going to question what they're doing here. Deportation and a withholding order. What's the difference? Kudos to Stephen Miller for exposing them right there on the spot in real time. All right, now that wasn't the only story to come out of yesterday's meeting. President Bukele shared his jaw-dropping anecdote as well. Here's something. I just think this guy is fascinating. Here's more.
Yeah, we even had this gang member from Venezuela, one of the ones you sent, and we interviewed him just to get some information, etc., from them. And he said, "Oh, well, I got arrested 6 times, but they released me the 6th time, so I should be released again." And then he said, "Well, but what's the last thing you do?" And he said, "Well, I shot a cop in the leg, but I didn't kill him. I just shot him in the leg." And we're like, this guy was arrested 6 times here in the United States, 6 times. He was released 6 times, and in the he was released 5 times, and the last time he was sent to El Salvador, right? So he's not getting released. But the last time he shot a cop, actually, and he shot him in the leg. So these are, like you said,
Right?
yeah, but there's something broken.
It's the liberal establishment. But they're not running things anymore in this country, and we're run by, and I don't say conservative, I don't say anything, we're run by people with great common sense.
Yeah, common sense.
Yeah. We'll take a break. We've got a lot more to cover here. Welcome to it. It's the Steve Gruber Show on Tax Day. We'll talk about that, too. All right, back to Bukele's comments. Maybe not jaw-dropping. I mean, we knew this was going on for 4 years, but a guy who'd been deported 6 times, shot a police officer in the leg, and was released 6 times, and then finally sent back to El Salvador to serve time in prison. Thank God for the fact that Homeland Security can actually do its job now and get these people off our streets, really. I mean, the Democrats can sit there and cow about it and cry about it, make all sorts of noise. They don't want these people in their neighborhoods at all. I certainly don't. And President Trump also floated the idea of getting our homegrown violent offenders off the streets and actually out of our country. What do you think of this? Listen.
They don't play games. I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that, Steve, okay?
Yeah. I'm sure that's not, thank you, Mr. President. I'm sure that's not legal. But I like the idea of looking at new ideas, trying something new, getting these, you know, you attack elderly people, you murder people on the subways, yes. Find something more potent for these folks. And like President Trump says, it's something he's considering if it fits within the rule of law, but I'd be willing to bet that that might put the fear of God in some of our violent criminals. It might not. And El Salvador max security prison is a whole other ballgame. In fact, it's a whole other sport. And you misbehave, you go there, but I don't think it's legal, like I said. On the economic front, another good day on Wall Street Monday and another huge win for the American people. A groundbreaking contract with one of the world's largest computer chip manufacturing companies, NVIDIA. NVIDIA committing $500 billion in investment in the U.S. to build computers right here on American soil. Pretty good news, right? Here's Donald Trump's reaction.
One of the biggest announcements you'll ever hear, because NVIDIA, as you know, controls that almost the entire sector, which is one of the most important sectors in the world, between chips and semiconductors and everything else. And they're the biggest. And the other biggest we already have coming in and spending $300 billion, as you know. They announced 2 weeks ago. But NVIDIA is so highly respected. And this was an announcement that a lot of people, I knew it was going to happen, but not to the extent that it happened. It's big.
It is big.
And the reason they did it is because of the election on November 5th and because of a thing called tariffs.
Yeah, I don't think it can be overstated how big of a deal this really is. Not even hours before former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen called something like this a pipe dream. No, I'm serious. She did. Janet Yellen, you know, remarkable. Listen to her.
Perhaps it's to bring back American manufacturing, but I really think that's a pipe dream and not something that is likely to be accomplished.
Oh, good
and we
Lord.
could even raise questions about whether or not, in a broad-based way, that's a desirable goal.
What a joke. All right, what a joke. You can imagine she had to be sticking her foot in her mouth once she saw that NVIDIA contract drop. But as I told you for years, Janet Yellen is not a smart woman. She's not bright at all. Yeah, and this who's in charge of our economic policy for the last 4 years, at least in part, someone who says onshoring American manufacturing might not be in our best interest. It's just a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. Janet Yellen, please go somewhere, anywhere, and keep still. Democrats wonder why the working class feels left in the dust by them and is now voting for Donald Trump and the Republicans. That kind of contract will result in more than 1 million square feet of manufacturing plants to be built in Arizona and Texas. NVIDIA Blackwell chips will be built and tested in Arizona, and AI supercomputers will be built in Texas for the first time ever. And it's going to happen fast. Mass production expected to ramp up in 12 to 15 months. That's right. This isn't some long-term deal and debacle like Joe Biden's EV charger scam or the home internet debacle that, well, they spent billions on and produced nothing over 4 years, nothing. These AI supercomputers are the future. They're the engines behind the data that processes artificial intelligence, and they will be built here in America. The contract expected to bring in thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs, in fact, trillions of dollars in economic security and growth. It strengthens our supply chains and chips away from our dependence on China for tech production in a big way. Thank you, President Trump. That's what I can say about this. Thank you, President Trump. And it all happens today on Tax Day, April 15th. It's Tax Day, April 15th. And by the way, I wanted to share something with you on that. There's some freebies out there for you on this Tax Day. If you're feeling a little beat up and you had to send money to the government, well, there's some deals out there. Krispy Kreme, Burger King, Hooters. Yeah, there's deals everywhere. Let's see, Buffalo Wild Wings. Spend $15 anytime this month, and rewards members can cash in on free sandwiches to help survive the April crunch. Burger King putting together a whopper of a deal. Members can snag a cheeseburger for 1 cent with any $1 plus purchase at participating locations. There you have it. Denny's through May 9th. Get a second original Grand Slam or All-American Slam for $1 when you dine in. This is all over. These deals are all over the place. So just so you know, there's opportunities for you to cash in at all sorts of restaurants. The Hooters deal, you'll have to find out on your own. I don't know what it is exactly. You'll just have to find out on your own. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? Speaking of all those companies, capitalism has produced the greatest increase in human wealth, living standards, and overall flourishing. Good question. Ask 10 people to define it, and you'll get 10 different answers. But do you really know what capitalism means? Hillsdale College, offering 40 free online courses. Yes, free. There's something you can capitalize on. The subject of the Constitution, the Roman Republic, Genesis, and so much more. And understanding capitalism is one of them. In just 7 short lectures, you'll learn about profit and loss, private property, and the rule of law, and why capitalism, at its core, is built not on greed, but on freedom and human nature. It's free. It's thoughtful. It's Hillsdale College. Do it right now. Go to gruberforhillsdale.com. No cost. Easy to get started. gruberforhillsdale.com. You can learn for free. gruberforhillsdale.com. You can thank me later, and I do want your feedback. All right? Don't forget to follow me on Twitter today and Facebook. Be part of the movement, please. I'll be right back.
Great high school.
All right, so here it is, another bit of evidence. We're going to dig deeper into this in just a moment. But a judge has blocked Donald Trump from revoking legal status for 530,000 people in the country illegally because they came in using Joe Biden's app. We're going to get to that in just a moment. We're going to dig deeper into that and more on the El Salvador visit for Bukele. A lot of it deals with, of course, illegals in this country. How many are here? And it's interesting that a lot of these folks are saying, oh, it's perfectly fine for them to be here. They're not in your neighborhood. They're not in their neighborhood. And the neighborhoods they're in, the people don't want them there. I mean, it's pretty simple stuff, actually. UPS is going to reinstate, we'll get to that in a moment. UPS is going to reinstate China to U.S. fee. No end date in sight. It's a reflection of the tariffs. The UPS is going to reinstate a 29-cent per pound surcharge on all shipments from China, Hong Kong, and Macau entering the U.S. began yesterday. The parcel carrier did not list an end date for the surge fee, which has a rate that can be adjusted at any time. The fee applies to a shipment's billable weight. It's also subject to UPS's fuel surcharge. Interesting, really, considering the cost of gasoline Continues to go down. Down again yesterday. Down from 318 the day before, 317. That's the national average, and that's where we are. Don't forget to start your day with 1775 coffee. I'm telling you, this stuff is the best. I love it. I got a bag of it right here so you can see it. 1775 coffee. It's not corporate nonsense. It's really good coffee. I had a listener send me a note yesterday. Hey, Steve, I like, medium roast. Don't really like really strong coffee. What do you think? Medium roast is available. Light roast is available. You've got a protein creamer that's unlike anything. Power Up. Never seen anything like it. It's your morning fuel. It's what we drink around here. And your morning deserves more than weak mass-produced coffee. You deserve 1775 coffee. Single origin, high altitude, hand-picked, and roasted for bold, uncompromising flavor. 1775coffee.com/Gruber. You'll save 10%. There's your bonus for tax day. Save money on your morning coffee. Enjoy it with me every single day. And, by the way, you get entered to win a Tesla truck, Cybertruck, every time. 1775coffee.com/Gruber. I'll be right back.
Ernie Johnson and Charles Barkley.
All right, back at it here on a tax day 2025. I hope you got your taxes done. We were still fudging a couple of things together yesterday, but I know that Ivy finished it up, and so therefore we're legal. Although I did get a notice from the IRS, I owed them like $500 or something from Oh, from some deposit we made here a few months ago. I got a little, not really a nasty gram. Hey, you owe us money, and you better do it, or it actually was literally for $500. We can repossess your house, you know, for $500. Really? Okay. Anyhow, I mentioned here a moment ago NVIDIA. $500 billion. $500 billion we're going to bring into America, into Arizona and Texas to build computer chips. I wanted you to know a little bit more about it, how major this investment is. Listen to this.
But I got to tell you that it's astonishing to see how quickly people are moving because of this. I saw a flow chart, Larry, that just astonished me about semiconductor onshoring, where basically NVIDIA and Foxconn and about 50 partners that are, that make the parts that go into the parts that go into the parts, that are all thinking about how are they going to get that stuff to happen here in the U.S. And it's literally astonishing what people are doing with AI and everything else to design the onshoring. And I think it's going to happen way faster than people expect. And it's something that you can see when you see huge announcements like we've seen. It's in the trillions and trillions of dollars of onshoring that's going to happen really over the next year or two. Now, think about what that means in terms of just GDP growth, all that capital spending that's happening because of the onshoring of these tariffs. And so I think President Trump is right that we can bring this stuff onshore. And he's even more right today than he was in 2017 because with computers and AI, it's so much easier to move stuff from place to place. And with 3D printing and robotics and so on, it's astonishing what's happening.
It really is astonishing what's happening. You've got all of these great things going on with the economy in many ways, but front page of the New York Post today says that a lot of small businesses are basically screaming for relief because they're getting beat up from the tariffs that are causing angst for their small businesses. So that's real. And I'm not going to disregard that as, oh, well, that's the price of it. No, these are real people with real businesses who have a real problem because prices and expenses and supply chains have been disrupted by all of this. It's on the front page of the New York Post today. If you want to go there and read it, you probably do, and find out more. Meanwhile, back to this. A judge has blocked Donald Trump from revoking the legal status of 530,000 plus illegals. These are some of the ones that were flown into the United States illegally. This is how Joe Biden, Joe Biden had nothing to do with it. This is how Joe Biden's puppeteers were able to game the system by people using the CBP app on their phones, jumping over the border, and not having to get caught by Border Patrol. And now another district judge, another radical district judge has stood up and says, well, you can't toss those people out. Of course you can. The president has control over immigration policy. And the idea that these federal district judges can continue to interfere with American policies that are legally the jurisdiction of the President of the United States, the fact that these judges think they can continue to interfere, an injunction from a district judge in San Francisco, an injunction from a district judge in Texas or Maine or wherever. Another judge in Maine, by the way, speaking of that, saying that the government cannot cut off federal funding to Maine. Sure they can. You violate the rules, we can cut off federal funding. That's how they got things done in this country, like Wyoming, mid-1970s. The drinking age was 18. There was no speed limit on their highways. And if you weren't drunk, you were allowed to drive. So let me just break that down for you. You could be legally driving down the highway in Wyoming, 1975, going 120 miles an hour with a beer between your legs would be perfectly legal. Well, then they came for the drive for 55, right? And Jimmy Carter's federal government said, listen, we are not going to give you any money, Wyoming, until you reduce your speed limits to 55. You ever driven across Wyoming or Montana or Nebraska, east to west? It's a long way, or even Iowa. It's a long way, a lot of cornfields. 55 was an idiot move then. It'd be an idiot move now. 55. The Red Rocker. I can't drive 55. At any rate, so a federal judge Monday blocked the Trump administration. Back to this ridiculous behavior. A federal judge on Monday blocked the Trump administration from revoking the legal status of work permits of more than 530,000 migrants, which means illegal alien. When you hear the term migrant, put in the correct legal term, illegal alien, from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela, who flew into the United States during the President Joe Biden's time in office. See how they didn't say he was in charge during his time in office. The migrants came to America under Biden's controversial CHNV Mass Humanitarian Parole Program. And in her order, Judge Indira Telwani, appointed by Barack Obama, wrote that each migrant needs to have an individual case-by-case review. 530,000 cases. It's obscene. It's a joke. It's not possible. The termination of parole process is hereby stayed. The Biden administration created the program in 2023 through his executive parole authority. Oh, executive parole authority, meaning you could put this program in by executive order, but the next president can't take it out by executive order. You see where this is so wrong? Of course you do. Put it in by executive order, but you can't eliminate it for any reason, apparently. It has to stay forever. And that's what they wanted. That is exactly what they wanted, to have all these people in the country to vote. They thought they were new voters. Well, that's going to be shut down. It's going to be shut down, and all these court orders and all of these stays. Here's the good news. The Trump administration and Donald Trump himself knew they were going to face a blizzard of legal action when he became president. Thankfully, they came prepared. Doesn't make it all that much easier, but they came prepared. If you're looking to take control of your health, at the Wellness Company, they offer doctor-formulated supplements and personalized care to boost your wellness. Whether it's immune support, heart health, or just feeling your best every day, they've got you covered. Become a member today and enjoy exclusive access to expert consultations, premium products, and health content. If you're ready to start, visit twc.health/Gruber. Use the promo code Gruber. You'll save 10% at the Wellness Company. Your health, your way. twc.health/Gruber. Go there today and get on board. twc.health/Gruber. Look, I bring these people to you. They're partners of mine and bringing this program to you every day. To kick off broadcasting here on Real America's Voice, MTN, and live in all 50 states and around the world. But I need you to support the folks that support me, all right? So if I say 1775 coffee, give them a try. TWC, the Wellness Company, give them a try. Give these people a try. They're all good partners of mine. Would you please? And remember to follow me today on Twitter. We're looking for 25 new followers on Twitter and Facebook today. Are you it? Help a brother out. Are you? Welcome back to the program. You know, I've talked to you about this a number of times, but I come back to it from time to time because I found it so very important. I have a son who plays football, for example. And for the last 2 seasons, this will be the third, he doesn't go on the field without wearing his NeuroGuard mouth guard. The reason is it gets rid of concussions down to 0.26% or possibly lower. It increases the speed and strength that he has. And it's not according to me, it's according to Michigan State University, according to Wayne State University. And my next guest is a believer, too. Coach Joe Willis, who's also an athletic director, joins me now. Coach, nice to have you on the program.
Yeah, it's good to be with you this morning.
Really appreciate it. All right, so you're coaching down there in Crosby, Texas. Gets a little hot down there, a little hotter than I really appreciate. But when it comes to mouth guards, doesn't matter whether it's hot or cold, football, basketball, soccer, you have experience with this NeuroGuard. Tell me what you think of it.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back quite a few years for me, back when I was in the Metroplex at Colleyville Heritage. Came across this mouthpiece, and quite honestly, what sold me on it was that it went on the bottom jaw and stayed in the mouth. So our players could communicate with it in. Players take their mouthpiece out and lose them quite often, but this allowed the mouthpiece to stay in, them to communicate. As I did more research, I found out that some programs that had also used a mouthpiece had a lot of success eliminating and reducing concussions.
Well, how many kids you got on a team each fall when you go? I guess you probably start in the summer with 2-a-days, but how many kids on the team?
Yeah, so in our program, 9th through 12th, we have about 150 players.
It's a lot.
The other programs I've had, up to 200 players. I've had programs where our budget allowed us just to buy the mouth guard for all the players in the program. We don't have that here, but I do purchase it for those players, again, that need to keep the mouthpiece in during the course of the game and communicate.
So you're experiencing 150 to 200 players a year for many years now. What do you think what would you normally anticipate for the number of concussions you would see that you had to put the player into concussion protocol and all the steps you have to take, which I understand? How many would you expect to see, and how many do you actually see?
Well, it varies year to year, of course, program to program. And obviously a lot of the concussion issue goes back to the physical training of the player, the body type of the player. There's a number of factors there. But I would anticipate anywhere from 5 to 10 concussions that we actually put players in protocol for each year. I will say that with this mouth guard, I have yet to have a player that has gone into concussion protocol. Now that may not be a great piece.
Wait a second. So you said with 150 players, you might have as many as 10 concussions during the season. You have zero. Yeah,
with this mouth guard in. For instance, in Colleyville Heritage, we purchased the mouth guard for all the players there.
Yeah,
all the varsity players, that is. And we had about 55 players on varsity that year. We had 2 players that went into concussion protocol. Neither one of those players were wearing the mouth guard. They had purchased their own mouthpiece.
So every player that wore the NeuroGuard, that wore this mouth guard, and it goes on the mandible, on the bottom jaw, no concussions.
Yeah, that's been my experience with it.
That's remarkable. I mean, as a coach, you see players get hurt. It's a contact sport. Life's a contact sport. It's rough out there. People get hit hard. Quarterbacks get hit. Receivers get hit. Everybody gets hit. To have 0 concussions, I mean, that's quite a story. I mean, that's pretty remarkable, isn't it?
It is very remarkable. And like I said, I'd have to say that's probably anecdotal evidence because, there's a number of things that go into that. I mean, obviously, we're going to have concussions are part of our game. We're going to have players that are going to enter the protocol. But that's been my experience with it thus far, which is pretty strong. And again, I'm not going into all the science and everything. That's for other people to do. But I have 32 years of coaching now. And in 32 years, I can tell you that the Power Guard has definitely reduced the number of concussions that we've had in our program.
Yeah. For other people, other sports, I mean, women's basketball, for example, has a lot more concussions than I ever realized. Started doing some research. It's not just football. It's girls basketball. The soccer players, they run into each other hard on occasion.
There's no
this,
doubt.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
this mouth guard would do the same for them, wouldn't it?
yeah. I think really, you go into basketball. A lot of players do wear mouthpieces in basketball now, and I think it's definitely smart to do that. Soccer for sure. That's definitely a sport where there's a lot of contact to the head. Cheerleading, I think, is still, per capita, the number one concussion sport that we have, as far as an activity. I think it's probably safe to say that anytime you're involved in an athletic activity where that's a possibility, that wearing a mouthpiece is definitely something you should do. And when you compare this to some of the other mouthpieces that are really more aesthetic on the market, I think it makes total sense to wear this NeuroGuard mouthpiece.
Absolutely, something that makes sense. I mean, we used to joke about, the getting your bell rung. We used to laugh about such things. It's not really, now that we know what happens to the brain after that, it's not anything to be trifled with at all, is it, Coach?
No, it's not. And I've worked with the NFL player organization. This goes back quite a while. Early in my career at Cedar Park and near the Austin area. Especially when the awareness of concussions began to be a part of what we looked at as coaches. And I'll tell you this, that, over the years, like, for instance, there are several things like the Guardian cap is now a practice piece. The NFL is actually allowing players to wear that in the game now.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for the equipment that you use. Obviously, the NeuroGuard, the Guardian cap, the type of helmet you wear. I think there's something to be said for the training, but it's certainly not something that we should ignore, and especially when you're talking about younger players, because I think the evidence is pretty clear that the earlier you experience a concussion, the more likely you are to get one again. So
don't have it happen.
worry. I worry as much about youth sports as I do about any level of sports, because again, the bodies is not developed enough.
Yeah, Coach, I agree. If you want to find out more, you're listening right now, you want to find out more, go to NeuroGuardPlus.com. Go to NeuroGuardPlus.com. Use the promo code Gruber, my name. You'll save 10% on it, and you'll have peace of mind because you won't get your bell rung. Coach, thank you so much for being here.
You bet. My pleasure.
NeuroGuardPlus.com. I'll be right back. All right, Doge continues to do its job despite the screaming and crying of those on the left. Doge continues to do its job very, very well. A massive VA contract for salary survey data and analysis was found. $11.1 million worth of surveys and analysis. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Everybody was fleecing us. Everybody. Multi-year contract was originally $15.3 million. It had 11 plus left on it. It was replaced by a market price of $5,000. The contract cost $3.9 million annually, $5,000. The VA was paying $380,000 a month for minor website modifications that we found earlier this year. The contract was renewed, and the work was not being done by one internal VA software engineer spending, now it's 10 hours a week. When the VA dismissed more than 1,000 employees, now they can spend $98 million in resources for health care, benefit services, and for the VA people in general. Yeah, unbelievable. Are you tired of being in pain every day? Well, try Exodus now. I take this every day, Exodus. I love this. I do. It's a natural, holistic supplement, combines 2,000 years of ancient wisdom with modern science, featuring 7 biblical ingredients: frankincense, myrrh, cumin, paired with the groundbreaking benefits of molecular hydrogen. It works for me. Man, you know, I don't have a lot of pain, except when Sarge beats me up at the gym. But it just makes me sharp. It does. It clears my head. You don't have to suffer anymore. Try ExodusNow.com. Try ExodusNow.com. Make you sharp on your game. Get rid of aches and pains and inflammation too. Exodus. Here's the website. Try ExodusNow.com. Try ExodusNow.com. Have you done what I asked you, by the way, on this other thing? Have you followed me on Twitter? Have you followed me on Facebook? Are you watching live on YouTube? The people there are loving it, by the way. YouTube fans loving it. The live feed of the program every day, 3 hours worth. This is the Steve Gruber Show. All right, live from Studio G and fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom. Here we go into another brand new hour. Just lit the fuse. Warning. The Steve Gruber Show often results in extended periods of American pride, American optimism, and uncontrollable enthusiasm for the future of this country. Live in all 50 states and around the world, it is a dirty job, but I'm going to do it anyway. Here's 3 big things you need to know right now. Number 1, Katy Perry and a handful of other uber-wealthy women like Lauren Sanchez went for a very expensive rocket ride Monday on Blue Horizon to proclaim women power, I guess. Number 2, UPS jacking up the fees on China to U.S. shipments to help offset some price issues. Nothing new. It's been done before, but people are a little worried. And number 3, well, one of the most colorful moments in the Oval Office on Monday was the wild exchanges involving Caitlin Collins from CNN, who kept pushing for an answer about whether or not El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele, would return a Salvadoran citizen to the United States after he was deported, having been identified twice as an MS-13 gang member by immigration courts. And then there's a bizarre turn of events. You saw that in the first hour. There's a bizarre turn of events. CNN had to issue an official statement that they don't hate America. Yeah, I mean, really. A bizarre thing. Dana Bash and CNN had to issue a disclaimer on Monday denying that they hate America. It's strange but true. Here it is.
We have been listening to a lengthy live press conference inside the Oval Office with the leader of El Salvador, Bukele, where we have heard a lot of bits of information, a lot of news nuggets that we want to definitely focus on, a lot of some misinformation as well. But we want to digest all of this right now with our terrific panel here and our reporters. Jeff Zeleny, I want to start with you. You are at the White House. Before I get to you, I just want to say, for the record, since we heard President Trump say in the Oval Office that CNN hates our country, CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying. I've been here for 32 years, and I see a rhetorical device in him trying to say such a thing.
32 years in that culture. That's one of my takeaways, by the way. Dana, 32 years you've sat there and pushed a left-of-center agenda. Look, it's not a secret. Chicken noodle news is what chicken noodle news is. You hate Donald Trump. Caitlin Collins really hates Donald Trump. It's embarrassing. It's so obvious. And yet, you sit there and windbag that kind of garbage. Anyhow, CNN claims to not hate America. Right? Claims to not hate. You just heard Dana Bash say, we don't hate America. It should go without saying. Yeah, it should go without saying. It shouldn't have to be brought up. But, of course, it had to be brought up because there's truth to it. Dana Bash. In fact, when CNN hates or claims to not hate America, this is what comes to mind. You listen to this, and then you tell me what their position on America really is. Listen.
Here's a breaking news. We live in a racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic country.
Everything they're doing runs against making America great.
Well,
it was never great, so I'm not going to say the again part, but making America great.
Kicking off the Independence Day weekend, President Trump will be at Mount Rushmore, where he'll be standing in front of a monument of 2 slave owners and on land wrestled away from Native Americans, told that be focusing on the effort to, quote, tear down our country's history.
They strongly believe, these human smugglers, that this is their chance to enter the United States. This is their chance at the American dream. That's why they risk everything, only to find out that it's all a lie.
And when we got our freedom, our quote-unquote freedom, we were never restored whole, which is why you hear about reparations. So until the United States atones for that and makes good on that, we're still living in a racist country.
You tell me. So this is some of the stuff they put on a regular basis. I mean, you sit there and watch Scott Jennings fence with these people. And he laughs at them because they are so extreme so often, he has no other choice. And look, it's not just CNN. It's MSNBC, it's the Washington Post, it's the New York Times, it's the LA Times. It's so many of your major news outlets, it's embarrassing. And I've told you this before. Look, I used to work at an NBC-owned and operated station. These people go to the same bars and restaurants as their colleagues in the Democrat Party. They went to the same universities, the same colleges. They attended the same fraternities, the same sororities. They're all buddies. They're all in this together, and they do not want to lose their passes to these news presenters. They're not journalists. These news presenters don't want to lose the invitation to the cocktail party coming Friday night this week and Saturday night this week, the special get-together and whatever parties they're going to, and they don't want to miss any of that. They're stooges for the left. They blather on about democracy even though we live in a republic, a constitutional republic. The Pledge of Allegiance will say, "And to the democracy for which it stands." Democracies fail every time. And CNN fails to convince me that they're not anti-American. Dana Bash has been there for 32 years, as if that matters in some way. Her longevity there has no impact whatsoever on her agenda, on her biases. None. It's embarrassing. I could go on, but... oh, by the way, here's more evidence that CNN loves America so much. Or, well, maybe not. Here.
I voted for that piece of legislation because of a very specific provision, and it was if it caused injury or death to a police officer, which was one small piece of it. There were other things about, to your point, Caitlin, someone who was was charged but hadn't been convicted. As I've thought about it over the last couple months, I probably would have voted differently. It's a vote that I regret, but coming into this Congress, I trusted that this administration, we would have some, if they wanted to have border security, they wanted to work with Democrats, that we could actually move forward. I'm not really sure of that because I've seen the rhetoric that has come out and the attacks that have been targeted towards immigrants. So I'm very cautious and careful when I'm negotiating my votes moving forward.
Yeah, here they are talking about the Laken-Riley Act. She's attacking her own position on the Laken-Riley Act. Is that Democrat on CNN? It's because CNN loves America so much. That somebody like Laken-Riley, murdered on the campus of the University of Georgia in the morning of a Thursday, that somehow voting for the Laken-Riley Act and saying people that commit violent crimes in America should be tossed out, somehow that's a bad thing. This is CNN. Yeah. Okay, CNN, we got you. We hear you loud and clear. That's the problem. You think we don't. I'll be right back. You know, as we were discussing before the break, CNN and Dana Bash had to come out and say, you know, CNN doesn't hate America. And then I play you a whole montage of examples of CNN hating on America. And Donald Trump. And Trump voters and MAGA supporters and all of that. And then you just have to ask yourself, why? Because it's not just CNN, as I call them, chicken noodle news. It's not MSNBC. Here's something from my next guest. I'm going to share a little preview for you. Stronger than expected jobs report. CBS Evening News doesn't report it. ABC News, World News Tonight gives it 14 seconds. NBC News barely mentions it, but puts up a big banner about the market losing $5 trillion in tariff wars, and these are just examples. Inflation drops to 2.4%, completely unexpected. NBC gives it 8 seconds, CBS gives it 9 seconds, ABC doesn't mention it at all. And PBS brings on Janet Yellen with the IQ of a field mouse to say the economy is being wrecked by Trump. Joining me now is Tim Graham, the executive editor of News Busters at the Media Research Center's director of media research. Tim, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Look, these networks have not changed. Dana Bash can go out and tell us how she's worked at CNN for 32 years and how they don't hate America. But all the evidence, the empirical evidence, is quite different from where I sit. Look, I worked for an NBC-owned station. I know how these networks work. And I'm beside myself. How can they continue to be so dishonest? I mean, the inflation rate is terrific. The jobs number is terrific. The markets have come back. Are they back all the way? No, but we're only down about 8%. I mean, how can they continue to lie and call themselves journalists?
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of bias by omission, it's tricky because you don't know what you haven't seen. And so when there's actual good news and they give it a sentence or not even a sentence at all, it just tells you, you know, they're too busy going Trump tariff meltdown was what was on the camera, you know, on screen on NBC. So, I mean, they have a narrative. They're not doing the news because a news report would include the good news and not just the bad news.
Right, but they don't see any good news. If it's something that hurts Trump, I mean, they'll get out and put it right on the front page. Dun, da, 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 the trumpets will play. The world is in crisis. Look, here's something that just broke. It sounds like Steve Witkoff may have made a lot of progress with Vladimir Putin in the last 12 hours about bringing peace to the war in Ukraine. What will they do with that this morning on the morning news programs? Probably almost nothing, if anything at all. And that's very telling, isn't it?
Yeah, I had the Today Show on this morning. I didn't see anything. It is, again, if it's good news for Trump, it's not news. I mean, it'd be a little hard to avoid the end of a war.
Yeah, well, and here it is.
Or an invasion.
Here it is. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, after a 5-hour meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, announced that Russia is ready to discuss, quote, a permanent peace concerning the war in Ukraine. Well, wouldn't a permanent peace in Ukraine be the lead story on every network if they were honest?
I think it's fair to assert that if the Biden administration had a negotiator that got this promise, you know, it's not the end of the story.
Of course not.
But this would be big news if a Democrat was doing it.
It'd be the lead story. It'd be the only story.
Yeah.
They'd be talking about, you know, Joe Biden and the Nobel Peace Prize and how we march forward in peace and America's strength on the world stage and blah, blah, blah. Instead, it gets ignored. You're watching the Today Show. Thankfully, I don't have to subject myself to such nonsense. Well, you know, you say it, but, you know, I'm really glad I don't, Tim. I mean, I don't need, you know.
Well, that's what we do at Newsbusters. We watch the news so you don't have to.
Well, God bless you for that. But all right, but it doesn't matter. It's the economy, the war in Ukraine. Look, the media went crazy yesterday. Well, Caitlin Collins went crazy yesterday from CNN trying to demand that a Salvadoran citizen be returned to the United States, even though 2 different immigration courts found him to be a member of MS-13. I mean, this is how absurd this is. How about he go live in the neighborhood of some of these leftist journalists? Maybe that's where he should live, next door to them. Maybe that would change their mind. What do you think?
You know, this is, again, how the news is constructed by anecdote. Why on earth is this particular individual, a subject for, probably now an hour of network news attention, when yesterday in Maryland, they found an illegal alien guilty of raping and murdering a mother of 5.
Yeah,
and they're not touching it.
Right. Meanwhile, Carmelo Anthony, is celebrated. He stabbed a guy. It's not even in dispute. He stabbed a guy to death. They dropped his bond from $1 million to $250,000, and he's doing basically a celebrity tour. And the media's like, oh, this poor kid. Poor kid, he murdered somebody. He stabbed a kid in the heart with a knife in a track meet. I'm sorry. On what planet is that okay?
They reported the original stabbing, and they've left the story. But you also have to feel a little sorry for the actual basketball star, Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. Because, name confusion. I'll give you that. Anyhow, Tim.
But there's a GoFundMe for this stabber. It's amazing.
Yeah, $500,000 and counting. Yeah. Anyhow, Tim Graham, executive editor of Newsbusters. You come back anytime, we'll savage them again, hold them accountable for not doing their job. This is why I left NBC News 20 years ago. Greatly appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, there you have it. The news, not to be trusted. Gruber, to be trusted. I'll be back. All right. Zillow. Yeah, Zillow's a place. I look at Zillow a lot. Zillow's a real estate website. If you don't know Zillow, where you can go look at, and I do it quite a bit, actually, just to see what's out there in different places. If I'm traveling, I'll say, gee, I wonder what a house sells for here. If I'm, I was in Miami a few weeks ago. What are the houses worth? I was in Scottsdale, Arizona. What are the houses worth? Just curious, right? Anyhow, Zillow's going to ban privately marketed homes. It said it will ban homes initially marketed only to select buyers from appearing on its website. The latest twist in a long-simmering fight in the real estate industry over private listings. If a listing is marketed directly to consumers without being listed on the MLS, it's a multiple listing service, and made widely available where buyers search for homes, it will not be published on Zillow. This comes after the National Association of Realtors announced a new rule meant to settle an industry fight over a policy designed to reduce semi-secret listings known as pocket or off-market listings. That rule gives sellers the option to delay broadly advertising their homes online while leaving in place a policy that requires agents to list homes on shared databases known as multiple listing services, MLS, within a day of beginning public marketing. I've never minded pocket listings. Doesn't bother me in the least. Apparently it bothers Zillow and some other folks. So they won't be there now. Let's see, in other business news, Vietnam jumping in to produce iPhones, it looks like. Vietnam trying to put themselves at the front of the line to produce iPhones, take them out of China, produce them in Vietnam, and sidestep the tariffs and, encourage the Trump administration. All right. And next, we're going to talk about Ford Health. Henry Ford Health is in the Detroit area. DEI agendas like you've never seen before. And they've been caught. And now there's a big campaign effort from Consumers Research to expose them. What does that all mean for DEI and healthcare in Michigan and the Midwest? We'll talk about it coming up. All right, back at it now. I'm glad to have you here. It's tax day, by the way, just so you know. Don't forget to pay your taxes or they'll come and beat you savagely in public or something like that. Or you'll just get nasty grams in the mail, one of the two. I saw this story yesterday and I was curious about it because Henry Ford Hospital, my mother was there. She was very sick a number of years ago. It was a great hospital. down in and around Metro Detroit, the Henry Ford Health System, right? But now they've been exposed for ongoing woke behavior, DEI. They think they're cute, but they're being called out for it. Will Hild, Executive Director for Consumers Research, with me now. Will, nice to have you here.
Great to be with you this morning.
All right, so Henry Ford, what are they doing, and what are you doing in response?
Absolutely. Well, as you noted, it's a prestigious medical clinic that was set up by the famed industrialist and philanthropist Henry Ford. And really, what we're doing is it's a six-figure campaign to call out Henry Ford and say, get back to what you're supposed to be doing, which is focusing on patient care. Because right now, what they seem to be doing is focusing on wokeness and cozying up to the far left and pushing a far left political agenda. So specifically, they are pushing the DEI stuff still. They have a program where they have said that 51% of their suppliers, so they're pushing DEI not just inside the hospital, but outside down their supply chains, 51% of their hospital suppliers are going to be LGBTQ or POCs, people of color. This is rank discrimination. And then in addition to that, they are pushing net zero targets within the hospital. The problem with net zero is it raises costs. So those costs have to be passed along to the patient. We've seen that across American industry. Whenever a company or an industry goes net zero, cost goes up. And then last but definitely not least, I want to save this because I think it's the worst, they are proudly mutilating the genitalia of children. They engage in sex change surgeries for kids under the age of 18, which I think is horrific. And I don't think, 80, 90% of the country thinks it's horrific. They need to be getting away from that and moving back to just focusing on patient care like your parents got.
You've got FordHealthExposed.com, brand new website here, and I'm on the page. And under gender ideology, according to a recent media report, Henry Ford Health admitted they are currently offering harmful, irreversible transgender treatment to kids. Henry Ford Health touts it is one of the few health systems that provides care for, quote, any transgender individual, including adolescents, and has health care providers with a specific LGBTQ plus designation, including doctors with a specialty in pediatrics and LGBTQ plus health. This is obscene. It's grotesque.
It's horrific.
I can't find enough adjectives to adequately disparage this kind of crap. What do you say?
Yeah, we completely agree. And even if they are bragging about it on their website, we still think everyone should know about it, because I think when most people walk into the Henry Ford Clinic and they believe they're going to get top flight care, what they don't think is that they've got a Dr. Mengele down the hallway mutilating children. And so we are highlighting that. We think this is grotesque behavior. No institution should be mutilating children, should be injecting them with hormones that we use to chemically castrate pedophiles. It's the same chemicals. That's how grotesque this is.
That's right.
So we are pushing back on that hard.
So what do you expect to, what are you hoping to accomplish here? Will, what are we putting together here? What are you going to accomplish? What do you hope the end result is? Look, under the Trump administration, people who get federal funds are already, in danger of losing those funds. We saw Harvard just say, you know what, we're going to do it anyway. Cost Harvard $2.2 billion. We'll see how long they stick to that narrative before they scream uncle. But for these hospitals and so forth, look, you get reimbursed by CMS. That's how it works. You get reimbursed federal dollars to CMS, and if those federal dollars just stop, I don't know how many hospitals in America could survive financially without the help of the infusion of federal dollars. What do you say?
That's exactly right. And that's why we're highlighting this, because, as you know, the Trump administration has made DEI and transgender surgeries on kids completely off the table. And they even put out an executive order asking every government department to find 9 companies or organizations to investigate for still engaging in DEI or this kind of crazy stuff that they're doing to kids. And so that's exactly why we're highlighting. I mean, obviously, I would love if Henry Ford Clinic saw our campaign and just said, you know what, we give up. This was a bad idea. We're going to move on. But short of that, I would like to see the public understand what's going on there so that they can educate the Trump administration, and that our tax dollars won't be going to mutilating and affecting children permanently, negatively for the rest of their life. And additionally, we shouldn't be using tax dollars to push race and LGBTQ-based discrimination. People should be getting contracts as suppliers of any organization based on the merit of the quality of the product and the price, not on rank obvious discrimination, which Henry Ford is bragging about. So those two things combined alone, I think, should disqualify them from taxpayer funds. And so we're elevating this in the public's eye for that reason.
I want to back up to this gender ideology just for a moment here, Will. How many of these surgeries, of these radical injections of powerful chemicals, how many lives are being altered permanently annually through this health system?
It's at least in the dozens. I mean, some of the other places that we've investigated, we did a Cleveland Clinic Exposed campaign. They had done over 111 procedures on children under the age of 18. Henry Ford is in a similar position, and they're bragging about it. I mean, clearly they're not ashamed of what they're doing. They should be. They're going to be answerable to somebody someday, if you catch my drift. But we hope that they're answerable here on Earth to the Trump administration. This stuff should not be getting federal funding. And we hope that the state of Michigan, I mean, the governor might be a wacky Democrat, but a lot of the legislature is not. And a lot of the populace is not. And like I said, 80 to 90% of people say, you should not be touching kids with this stuff. This is insane. And so what we've seen in some of the other states where we've raised this is the public in the state has pushed back and the state government has intervened.
I think that what you're going to see here, Will, at some point, I think it's inevitable, is that some of the detransitioners who have been mutilated and cannot have, a normal life and are now medical patients for the rest of their natural lives are going to file civil lawsuits against Henry Ford, against the Cleveland Clinic, against other hospitals across this nation that have performed similar draconian, maybe Frankenstein's a better way to put it, however you want to look at it, type surgeries on these people. There's going to be a financial bill that's going to come. And I don't know that it's covered by insurance. I don't know that it's covered by malpractice because it is so far beyond the pale. I give you the last word here. I applaud what you're doing to expose this. Give me your last word.
People who'd like to learn more can visit us at henryfordexposed.com. I completely agree. And I think even from a consumer perspective, putting away what they're doing to children, this is why, your point is why it's so important to get rid of this thing, because Henry Ford does provide patient care to a lot of people. It shouldn't be bankrupted because they have a bunch of lunatics running the place over there. And so we hope that they'll curtail this now before they are facing such huge liabilities that you've rightly predicted.
There you go. Well, greatly appreciate you being here at Consumers Research. You can find out more at the website FordHealthExposed.com. FordHealthExposed.com. Will, thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll get an update sometime in the not too distant future, figure out how well that's going. We'll be right back. It is the Steve Gruber Show. You are informed. I mentioned this earlier, and I'll dig deeper into this in the next hour because it is incredibly important. Steve Witkoff has come out of a 5-hour meeting with Vladimir Putin, says he has the roadmap to a permanent peace, ending the war in Ukraine. Doesn't say it's a done deal, says he knows what Russia wants now, and it's going to be exactly what I told you years ago now. The eastern part of Ukraine will become Russia. Crimea will stay with Russia. I mean, this has always been the outcome. We'll continue with that later because there are other big global topics to discuss. Alarisa Jeffrazada, Iranian-American intelligence expert and a deputy director of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI, is with me now. Alarisa, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Steve. Always a pleasure.
So the negotiations from the Trump administration are global. They include trade, they include secure borders, they include nuclear weapons in Iran as well. And there's an intelligence report that negotiations over nuclear weapons will move from Oman to Italy over this Easter weekend. What can you tell us?
Well, I think what's important to understand is that even though the Iran regime has been involved in the negotiations on its nuclear weapons program, dating back to over 20 years ago, actually right after we first exposed the nuclear site in Natanz, and in various press conferences in the summer of 2002 showed a complete picture of the nuclear weapons program of Tehran. The EU3, Britain, France, Germany got involved in negotiations with Tehran. And then, that dragged, basically, they gave concessions to the Iranian regime, gave them everything they wanted, and allowed them to proceed with the program. And then again in 2015, the Obama administration got involved earlier, and that led to the 2015 JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, known as the nuclear deal, that basically legitimized the enrichment program, legitimized keeping all of the nuclear sites, instead of following with our call, which was to end the entire nuclear weapons program. But even though 10 years later, you're now again talking about U.S.-Iran negotiations, but the circumstances are entirely different, and this must be understood by everybody. This regime has never been so weak. They have lost much of their clout in the region. Assad in Syria is gone. Their proxies in Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and you name it. All the other proxies have been either, basically shattered or weakened. And inside Iran, most importantly, there have been 9 rounds of major uprisings since 2018. People calling for regime change. The economy is in shambles. The regime is weak.
Let me ask you this. Is this, in some places, I get this idea that this regime is scared to death, that they're paranoid, that somebody's going to knock them out, that there's going to be a coup or something. Is that true?
Well, they certainly are most concerned about their internal situation and uprising by the people. People saw the previous uprising. It engulfed all 31 provinces. People were chanting death to the dictator, death to the oppressor, be it the Shah or the supreme leader. There is an organized opposition on the ground that, despite the killings and the executions, have expanded. So that's the main concern. Actually, Khamenei, the supreme leader, said just a few weeks ago that I'm less concerned about war and more concerned about the internal unrest. And that's why this is the weakness that the outside world need to exploit. Understand that this regime doesn't really have any leverage. It's not, previous years. So what you do is dealing with the Iranian regime, you hold them accountable. You demand for their action instead of just offering them concessions. Because once you start making offers and concessions, they're really masters in deception and playing games.
Of course they are. Now let me
buying
ask you this.
time and, dragging.
How close to the nuclear weapon are they? Because I don't believe that Israel or the United States will ever allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. How close are they?
Well, it's very difficult to say, give an exact timeline because there's still a lot of unknowns. However, based on what we already know, and we played a big role in exposing various parts of their nuclear weapons program, including the weaponization that we just had a press conference in January showing that the regime is working on building nuclear warheads. They have the enrichment capability. They have been working on weaponization and also the delivery system. They're working on building nuclear warheads with a range of over 3,000 kilometers. So that's and nothing has been done really in curbing their activities, in stopping them. And given the experience of the past, this regime is not really going to act on its own unless they're overthrown. And that's the real solution. And that's, of course, the responsibility of the people of Iran and the organized resistance. But what outside world can do, they can hold them accountable on the one side, but on the other side, stand on the side of those who want to bring about change in Iran, recognizing the rights for overthrowing the regime.
Alarisa, you had basically said that the regime's at a very weak point. Is this the weakest point? Is the regime, the Islamic Republic regime, is this the weakest it's been since 1979?
Absolutely. This is the weakest. You know, this regime has relied on two pillars: internal repression and export of terror and having all these proxies. When was the last time that you saw that, they had lost a huge ally in Syria? Never. And Hezbollah has played over, almost 4 decades, the biggest ally of the regime in the region. All of that has changed. But also inside the country, since last August, the regime, when Pezeshkian, the new president, took office, the regime has executed over 1,000 prisoners, including political prisoners and women.
Well,
this is a sign of weakness.
Hopefully we can find a path forward and regime. If there was a different leadership in Iran, I think we'd all be thrilled. Alarisa, I got to leave it there. Always appreciate your incredible insight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Steve. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. We'll take a quick break and a breather with sports after this. Time is our most precious. All right, time to check it out on sports with Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. The WNBA draft was last night in New York, and to the surprise of no one, the Dallas Wings selected Connecticut guard Paige Beckers with the first pick. Beckers just led Connecticut to the national championship last week. The WNBA regular season begins later this spring. No NBA games last night, but the New Orleans Pelicans fired Executive Vice President David Griffin after 6 years on the job, and the Phoenix Suns fired head coach Mike Budenholzer after just one season at the helm. In Major League Baseball, there were 10 games last night. American League winners included Tampa Bay, Detroit, and the New York Yankees. National League winners included Atlanta, Pittsburgh, and San Diego. And in the National Hockey League, there were 6 games last night. Winners were Detroit, the New York Rangers, Chicago, Utah, Vancouver, and Los Angeles. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, thank you. Looking at the move to move iPhones to Vietnam. I mean, that's a smart move, business-wise, for a $1.4 trillion company. Tim Cook's Apple going to ramp up production of smartphones, tablets, laptops in India and Vietnam. But India, you see, not off the hook here. India's not at the table as much as Vietnam is. The company expects to produce at least 50 million iPhones in India this year. Supplies of the majority of MacBooks, iPads for the U.S. market need to be made in Vietnam. Apple also asked suppliers to ship as many components and parts from China as possible to Southeast Asia and India to support the increasing production for a wide range of products for the U.S. market, according to multiple sources familiar with the matter. Yeah, China's getting gamed here. No more iPhones in China. Vietnam and India. The iPhones in India, everything else in Vietnam. Bye-bye, China. China. Yeah. What do you think about defunding NPR and PBS? Is that what you voted for? It's what I voted for. We're going to talk about that in the next hour as well. Don't go anywhere. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Good to have you on board. All right, lighting the fuse on another explosive hour here. The Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you on board for the conversation, my friends. Remember, this is a trigger warning. You could have great enthusiasm about America and optimism for the future after listening to this program. You've been warned. Good morning. Welcome to it. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, a Michigan lawmaker wants to reroute court funds to prosecutors after a Supreme Court ruling here in the state that says 19 and 20-year-old first-degree murderers can get away from automatic life without parole sentences. I don't know how that's even possible. Meanwhile, number two, is that Whitmer photo of her hiding in the Oval Office a nail in the coffin of her political aspirations? Kind of. I mean, it's just a ridiculously embarrassing look. And number three, ranked choice voting. Tossed out in some states, a terrible scheme put together by leftists. But over at Rank Michigan Vote, they're busy rallying the troops to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot. They want ranked choice voting on the ballot in 2026. Yeah, it's true. They want ranked choice voting on the ballot in 2026. Look, according to Rank Michigan Vote, RCV ensures that candidates with the best ideas, not the biggest bank accounts, have a fair shot winning. It's crap. It's a way that candidates that could never win an election get appointed, basically. Pat Zabawa said, in a time of rising turmoil and uncertainty, it's very clear our current system is wholly incapable of addressing the issues that matter most to voters. Wrong. The election system has worked just fine for 250 years. RCV is an election system where voters rank candidates in order of preference, first, second, third, and so on. If a candidate gets a majority over 50% of first-choice voters, they win, just like in a normal election. But if no one gets a majority, the candidate with the fewest first-choice votes is eliminated. Those who voted for the eliminated candidate have their votes go to their next choice, and the process repeats until someone has a majority. It's pushing to bring ranked choice voting to Michigan's federal elections, as well as races for governor, attorney general, secretary of state, the state legislature. They also want to give local governments the freedom to opt in. There are 5 cities that have already done this, but haven't been able to implement them due to restrictions in the state constitution: Ann Arbor, East Lansing, Ferndale, Kalamazoo, and Royal Oak, according to Bridge, Michigan. The group hopes to submit proposed language for the amendment and get it to the Board of State Canvassers at the end of this month, and hopefully start collecting signatures around Memorial Day weekend. Do not vote, do not support, do not sign these documents. Do not sign, do not be one of the 446,000 signatures they need. Ranked choice voting is only happening in 3 states. Alaska uses ranked choice voting on federal and state general elections, Hawaii for special congressional elections, and Maine for federal elections, state general elections, and presidential primaries. Anyhow, more than a dozen states have banned it completely as of March of 2025. There's a group against ranked choice voting called Stop RCV. They say that it benefits those candidates who have more time and access to information and gives more power to the elites while making it harder for everyone else to compete. They add that it also encourages fringe candidates and radical splinter parties. And the RCV is slow, relies on technology that many voters don't trust, like me, like computer systems. In their upcoming Zoom meeting for Ranked Michigan Vote, they promise insights on everything from canvassing to coalition building to collecting the needed signatures. Do not sign the petition. Do not support this perversion of voting. Do not. Alaska tried to get rid of it, and they will get rid of it next time around. You watch. Alaska will dump this mess. There's a reason a dozen states have banned it. It allows for candidates that would never get elected to get elected. That's how Alaska ended up with a Democrat in Congress, even though the Democrat never got more than 50% of the vote. because there were 2 Republicans on the ballot. And therefore, a Democrat won an election or was awarded a seat. I shouldn't say won an election, was awarded a seat. Anyhow, this picture of Governor Whitmer, speaking of losing ideas, the type of disastrous public relations weekend Whitmer wishes that could go away, cover up and hide. But that's what Whitmer got, the wrong kind of spotlight after a Wednesday meeting with President Trump in the White House. She thought she was going to have a private meeting, but was whisked into the background behind Trump during a press conference while the president was signing an executive order, according to the New York Times. Apparently, Whitmer didn't want any evidence of her standing behind Trump and used blue folders to cover her face. Then the New York Times published the photograph. Backlash severe, even from far-left pundits. Here's what Newsweek said. It's rare. No, this is what Keith Olbermann said from his mental health room. It's rare when you get a shot of the exact moment a politician's career ends, but there you go. Was this the nail in the coffin of Gretchen Whitmer's political aspirations? Daily Wire also weighed in. Gretchen Whitmer hiding behind her files in the White House is one of the funniest things I've seen. This is what my 2-year-old does. This is so much worse than if she let her photo be taken, said the press secretary for Josh Hawley. Where's Whitmer? Let's play peekaboo. Yeah, it was bad. A short video on her page over the weekend. Here's something else. People are always asking me, Jennifer, how do you fix a window? How the hell should I know? And my name's not Jennifer, I'm Gretchen. And I can tell you how we're fixing the damn roads. I mean, it was just one horrendously bad weekend for Gretchen Whitmer. I'm sorry to hear that. Her plans of being president, well, probably not that great at this point. I'm just going to say probably not that great at this point. Her aspirations really are. You know, Keith Olbermann isn't right about anything, but he might have gotten close on this one. He just needs his medication as soon as possible. At any rate, this part of the program brought to you by my good friends at WolverineWaterSystems.com. Wolverine Water, Michigan's purest, best water systems for almost 75 years. That's right. If you're in Michigan, we have a special offer for you. Get to WolverineWaterSystems.com, find out what it is, right? You can find out more about the Pure Health reverse osmosis system, the alkaline system. You can find out about all the great drinking water opportunities. That's right. WolverineWaterSystems.com for Michigan's best drinking water. And you can find out what the specials are today. I love my friends at Wolverine Water. Been my friend since long before I did this program. All right, we'll take a break and be back with more after this. All right, no real ID, you don't fly. If you don't have a star on your driver's license, a little star up there. And by the way, no, it's not the end of the republic. It's not the government spying on you every day. No. Yeah, facial recognition. Yeah. You know what does facial recognition? This thing right here. It's called a smartphone. You know what else does it? This laptop in front of me. My Samsung TV does it. Facial recognition. Sorry. A lot of people, oh, it's the end of the republic. It's the star in your wallet. No, come on. Beginning May 7th. So what, said 3 weeks from now, it's tax day. So 3 weeks from now, air travelers at domestic airports and people entering some federal buildings must have what's known as real ID. New Jersey's having some trouble for it, apparently. 13,000 plus appointments available for non-driver IDs, 34,000 appointments open for transferring driver's license from out of state, and 51,000 renewal appointments. So on Monday, the website in New Jersey, though, showed 0 appointments available for real ID. The demand for real ID now is extraordinarily high ahead of the start of the federal enforcement in May. The department says 3,000 new appointments for real ID upgrades are added each business day starting at 7 in the morning. The upcoming enforcement date most relevant for those in New Jersey who plan to fly in the short term and do not have a form of identification that will meet federal real ID requirements. I'm guessing that should ask Ivy about this. I think she checked into that. I think that your passport is good to go on this.
Steve, thank you for reminding me to renew my driver's license. It expires at the end of the year.
End of the year, end of the month?
No, end of this year, but now I may have to do it sooner because of the real ID thing.
Yeah, because if you have to fly, you don't. If you don't have a passport, you're not going to fly. If you don't, you've seen it, right? The little star up in the right-hand corner.
Yeah.
Well, you get that if you have the enhanced driver's license in Michigan, correct?
I don't know. I need to do some research here. I don't know that an enhanced driver's license is real ID. If you don't have the star, you don't have it. Pull it out, Anthony. Look. Do you have the star? You don't. Either you do or you don't. Processing time for an expedited passport, 2 or 3 weeks additional. So valid passports, yes, here it is. Valid passports can be used as an alternative to boarding domestic flights and entering federal facilities. Here's the other thing, though. Passports have also changed, if you haven't seen one. Ivy's passport looks very different from mine. Very different. Inside, not outside. On the outside, it's still blue and whatever. For Americans, here you go. For Americans who don't have a passport and are unable to obtain a DMV appointment in time, select AAA branches offer real ID services. A spokesperson for AAA told Fox News that real ID services vary across the country, available in 6 states, New Jersey not one of them, by the way. Some AAA branch offices offer that DMV service to issue real ID. Call AAA in your area. You might find that you can get it done that way. I don't know if that's true in Michigan or not.
The enhanced driver's license for Michigan is considered a real ID. It does have the star.
So if you got either you got the star or you don't.
And I think it's only like 5 states who have the enhanced driver's license.
And that means you can go across the Canadian border, right?
And Mexico, I believe.
Yeah. We have it, of course, because we're surrounded by those people in Ontario. They could invade at any moment. We have to be prepared, just so you know. You need 2 proof of residential address, a proof of Social Security, 6 points of ID required at appointments. So if you plan to fly, or if there's any way that you would have to fly, you need to have this, or you're going to be grounded, right? There's no way around it. Brock, I take it you have no real ID. You're not real.
Well, I think I'm real, although there's a lot of debate around that around the office. But you know,
fair enough. Anthony's got the star. I don't think Ivy has the star, but her driver's license has to be renewed next month anyway.
Oh, okay.
Birthday, so yeah. There you have it. Let's see. Another little housekeeping. Myra Flores. You remember her, Myra Flores? She was a Republican in Texas, first Mexican-born member of the House of Representatives, is now launching a re-election bid. We don't have that many voices in the Spanish-speaking community in Telemundo and television talking to the Spanish-speaking community about the amazing work of President Trump and his administration, said Flores. That's something I feel I'm obligated to do because there's a lot of misinformation being spread from the left, and they're trying to instill fear and hate in the Hispanic community. And she's targeting Henry Cuellar. He's got a lot of problems. A lot of problems because he's been accused of a lot of bad behavior. So, it comes back to haunt you a little bit. It comes back to haunt you just a little bit. Let's see here. I had something here. Where did that go? Oh, yes. Here it is. 2 sales in 1. I knew I'd find this if I dug a little bit. Right, you'll love this. Anthony, pay attention. Right now, MyPillow is having 2 sales in 1. Do you love that? Yeah. The first is a closeout sale on bed sheets. Any size, any color, $25. That's right. You can get queens, kings, split kings, Cal kings. Any size, any color, $25. 11 colors to choose from, but when they're gone, they're gone. The second sale is a new energy drink called Rev 7, a premium energy drink that's actually good for you. It tastes great, gives you energy all day, plus it has no sugar, no caffeine, so you don't experience those jitters and crashes that we've all been through with other energy drinks. What makes Rev 7 so special? It's powered with Cognizant, a premium nootropic that helps fuel your mind and go BHB, which is a primary ketone in your body that provides the most efficient and cleanest fuel ever. MyPillow is so confident you're going to love Rev 7 for a limited time. You can try their introductory 3-pack free. Go to MyPillow.com. Use the promo code Gruber. You can get free Rev 7 right now, plus $25 sheets, Percale bed sheets, $25. MyPillow.com, promo code Gruber. Go get them, kids. All right, and believe it or not, the MAGA movement is growing. At least people that identify as MAGA is growing. You know, watching the mainstream media think that it was getting less and less, but it's not. I haven't even looked at this in a while. I'm going to check this whilst I'm here. Oh, let's see. Where are we today? Stop it. Oh, come on. Latest polls. Look, the job approval rating. Donald Trump. Harvard Harris poll +2. He's on the plus side of this thing. Rasmussen, though, he said he's -2, 50 to 48. But of course, a lot of this bumpiness on the stock market probably has something to do with that. Anyhow, he's right at about 50%, so a point or two under, not so much better than he ever used to be. And polling shows a growing number of Republicans identify with the MAGA movement, as do other Americans. He's heading toward his 100-day mark of his second term. And this is from NBC News. 36% of registered voters say they are MAGA supporters in the March NBC News poll. It's a big increase, up from 23% of all NBC News polling across 2023. 27% in 2024, And now it's 36%. It's up almost 10 points. People say, yeah, I'm MAGA, right? I'm in this thing. I'm in this thing to win this thing. Does that surprise you? Does not surprise me. Let's see. Dow futures now in the red, about 150 points. S&P and NASDAQ right about even, less than 0.25%. If the Dow goes down 150 points, that's 0.3%. So that's right where we are. Right where we are as we head into a new trading day. Again, pretty flat. It's going to be at about 40,500, 40,700, somewhere right in there. All right. When I come back, Parker Fairbairn from Harbor Springs, Michigan will be here. I'll be right back. All right, I was, as I talked about here yesterday, Ivy and I talked about, we were in northern Michigan. It's a war zone. We were around Gaylord. We went through Elmira, on toward Petoskey, Bay Harbor. Did not go up to Harbor Springs, where my next guest is from. Parker Fairbairn is a Republican from Harbor Springs. He's a state representative up there. Parker, good to have you back on the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve.
It's rough up there. I mean, you look, it's a remarkable amount of damage. We were coming by the Gaylord Country Club, I guess, and I look across the golf course. Every tree, it looks like, is snapped in half. I mean, the amount of damage, and there are still people without power. The power crews are still working. I mean, there were stretches of road that we were on that it was clear that every power pole had been snapped because they were laying on the ground in 2 or 3 pieces, and there were brand new power poles there. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's pretty remarkable, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you talk with the power companies that are doing the repairs. They've got well over 1,000 linemen still working, and it's been, 16 days now since the start of this. I mean, unprecedented. I think in an average year, they're replacing somewhere around 800 poles, I heard, that Great Lakes Energy does, and they've already replaced 2,500. So this is unprecedented. We're, 4 months into the year. They're busy working, but we've never seen anything like this, and it really is a once in a generation. We haven't seen it actually in probably 4 generations, back to 1922.
Yeah, exactly right. Worst ice storm in more than a century, Parker. All right, so how many people? Do you have any idea? Last time I heard it was still about 10,000 people without power. I'm sure that's improved some, but at this point, it is slow going. It's a rough slog, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, their process was get the most people online as fast as possible. And now, I mean, you're going into the rural parts of these counties where, there's a few people still offline and they're going to repair those poles. So it is going to be a slow slog, but there is still a few thousand people. I know Sheboygan County, I still believe, has the most people without power, but we still have people in rural Emmett County without power. I know Otsego still has problems. So it's still ongoing, and we're needing all the help we can get.
Yeah, so, I mean, there were places where we thought power might not be restored for 60 days, and I thought that's unbelievable, but here we are. And, I know it's really expensive, Parker, to put power underground, but, I mean, how many times do we need to go through this before we just say, you know what, let's get it off the power poles, let's put it underground, especially in highly susceptible areas. And for Gaylord, hit by a tornado, 2 years ago, hit by this ice storm again. I mean, this area just keeps getting punched, don't they?
I think we really need to have a conversation about underground power, and maybe we just do it in those susceptible areas where it's heavily wooded, where we've got lines going through swamps and trees. I mean, let's put that underground, keep it free from any damage from trees, and you're going to solve a lot of issues. Yes, it's 4 or 5 times as much to do it, but we're not going to have these incredible costs when we have these major storms.
Yeah, and that's the point. The amount of, I don't know what the downtime or the money or the damage to the economy is, but it's pretty significant. I know that there's been some application for emergency declarations. I think it would probably be fitting, actually, because of this is thousands of square miles, literally, right? I mean, this is a huge area that has been damaged. I think it would be terrific if Donald Trump came and gave it a glance. I don't know that he will, but I think that he might want to consider it.
We've sent him the invitation. Congressman Bergman's been really great in communicating with the president on that. We had Speaker Matt Hall, who's done really good work advocating for this and actually spoke with the president about it last week. So we've got some really good things happening to bring awareness to this. But when you look at it, Florida has all of these hurricanes, and they always get the federal help when this happens. We'd like to see that up here. This is hurricane level damage. We speak with the linemen who go to all of these storms, and they say this is essentially a Category 5 hurricane in northern Michigan in terms of damage.
Yeah, look, we drove through there. I stopped. Ivy and I stopped, and we looked just because we were shocked at the extent and the reach. And this was both on Friday and again on Sunday. We had a chance to drive to that part of the state. And everybody told me it's worse to the east, it's worse to the northeast, it's worse in Sheboygan, as you just mentioned. I just feel for the people that are up there. I mean, this is no easy thing. I mean, look, I'm looking at yards where there's not a tree intact. You know, and they're not broken off at ground level. They're broken off, 10, 15, 20 feet in the air. It looks like a giant brush hog went through and shaved the top of the trees with a dull blade. That's what it looks like.
It's
right?
dangerous. And you look at it when we go to the spring when people are going to be mushroom hunting and doing all sorts of activities in the woods. There's all of these widow makers at the tops of these trees now. You never know when they're going to fall. You won't hear them, and they can cause serious damage and hurt people. So be careful when you're out in the woods.
Let me ask you this, Parker. You brought up a great point here. What about the hiking and biking trails in Gaylord, in Sheboygan, in that entire part of the state? Are they even safe to be on right now?
Well, they've got them closed down right now. If you go by any of the state parks we have, the DNR has it closed off. You can't enter them right now, and part of it's because of the storm. But the DNR is saying it's indefinite. They don't know when they're going to reopen. So think of what that's going to do to tourism in northern Michigan. It's going to be devastating, and we really need to have those parks opened up as soon as possible. And we've actually got communications with the department and the director asking and inquiring when we expect that to be open, because that
I hadn't even heard that.
Huge economic driver.
I had not even heard that. So the state parks, the county parks, everything's closed till further notice. I mean, because let's be honest, right now the focus is still with 1,000 linemen out there, as you point out, is getting power return. But then you need a team with chainsaws and chippers and teams to open up these trails, because you're right, these widow makers, which are, anybody doesn't know the term, it means that there's a tree that's partway down, it's hanging in the next tree over, or it's partway broken, it can come down at any moment. Ask the governor of Texas what it's like to be hit by a tree that falls. He's been in a wheelchair his entire life, adult life, because of it. Wow. Maybe some special funding from Lansing to get teams up there to clean up these trails, because you're right, tourism in northern Michigan relies on biking trails and hiking trails and being out in the woods and camping and all of that. And without that sort of thing, because it's too dangerous, well, that's a problem. I'll give you the last word, Parker.
Yeah, I mean, we've been having conversations at the state level now to get support. We've got commitments from the governor that she's going to be willing to help with this process. So I think we're going to see some good stuff happening for our area in terms of funding help. We've got road commissions and counties that are blowing through their budget, spending to debris cleanup and all sorts of stuff, and they just want to know that they'll be reimbursed if they can start cleaning up and start helping. But right now there's too many question marks. We don't know what the figures are in terms of cost, but it's going to be a big number.
What a mess, as I said before. Parker Fairbairn, he's a Republican from Harbor Springs. You come back anytime with an update, sir. We'll appreciate it. Thank you, Parker.
You got it, Steve. Thanks.
There you have it. I told you, Ivy and I went through it. I didn't know it was that bad. It's even worse than it appears, and it appears pretty bad. Ivy's right around the corner. We'll talk to her about it here on the Steve Gruber Show. All right, here we go back. Ivy and I drove around northern Michigan. Didn't realize it was as bad as what Parker Fairbairn just shared with me. And Ivy, I don't know how much of that you were able to hear, but good Lord. Thousands of people still without, 1,000 linemen still working. And what he said is, and I didn't realize this because we talked about this recently, all trails are closed.
Yeah,
all state parks are closed. All county parks are closed until further notice. And he says the impact on tourism is going to be devastating because it's a big part of what, I mean, a big part of our attraction in northern Michigan is riding bikes down those beautiful bike trails, hiking into the woods, and some of our places like, what's the place we go in the fall?
Dead Man's.
Yeah, Dead Man's Lookout. Yeah. You're not going in there.
No, and it's not safe to. It's probably wise to avoid those areas for now, and maybe for the next 6 months, maybe longer. I'm not sure, but I think it's wise for the DNR to close those areas down just based on what we were seeing.
Right. I mean, we've got a tree hanging in our yard. Mm-hmm. You know, we got a tree hung up on a tree in our yard that we're trying to figure out. All right, so how are we?
It's actually not in our yard. It's in I think.
Well, that's right. It's the neighbor's yard.
I think it's in an alleyway. Actually, no. I think it's actually in between the neighbor's yard and.
So the right of way, not the alley, the right of way, right?
The
exactly.
right of way.
In the right of way.
So it's actually the city's responsibility, but I'm
I
sure
think
that they
I'll call
have
them today.
I think they, there's probably other bigger concerns that they have at the moment, but yes, lots of these things that need to be reviewed and taken care of for sure.
Yeah,
I didn't hear much of the previous guest's interview, unfortunately, but. It is something that really needs to be considered and looked at, and for your own safety, I would avoid the areas for sure.
It's dangerous. I mean, you can't just close the woods forever.
No.
You can't close the trails forever, but when your priorities are on getting power back to people, and we just heard Brock just told us that his parents lost power, right? Brock, is what you told me?
Yeah, my dad and stepmom lost power. Their summer home is right in town, just south of Main Street. And,
in Gaylord.
In Gaylord, yes.
Right.
They lost power for about 24 to 36 hours. Mm-hmm. They just had minimal damage to the house, apparently, but my dad was more upset that he lost all his venison in the freezer.
I can appreciate that point of view, yeah.
That is terrible.
Sad.
But I want to move on to something
It could have been
else.
worse, though.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that. So, Steve, I'm kind of a health nut, and
yes,
kind of might be an understatement. But I want you to guess: eating more of this 105 calorie snack can lower your blood pressure. It's one of your favorite food groups. Your favorite thing to eat.
Crackers?
No, actually, I'm being sarcastic. It's not your favorite thing to eat. So if you are to eat a banana a day, high potassium diets actually help to lower
I don't
blood
mind
pressure.
bananas. They're just I don't know. Collectively, I'm not a fan of the texture. I'm not a fan of the flavor. I don't mind them on occasion, but my mother, always made us eat them, and I just
just have a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. A nice way to put it. Yes, I do.
Yeah, and increasing your intake of certain potassium-rich foods will have a greater impact on lowering your high blood pressure, especially bananas when they are not overly ripe. And it's just, hey, eat some more bananas, eat a potassium-rich diet. It will help lower your blood pressure.
All right.
There's a tip for the day. Also, I was just reading this study. Actually, I think you printed this out for me. But I can understand why people go through this dilemma of what should I eat? What should I, what's healthy? What's not healthy? And there seems to be a new study every day that's released that is like contradictory to the other study. And then I think people are just...
It happens every day.
Right. And then I think people are just so consumed with decision making that they just don't know what to do.
No, don't do that.
So
this is good. No, that's bad.
Right, and here's the headline: brown rice has 40% more of arsenic. in its rice.
That's what I want in my dinner plans.
Yeah, more than white rice. So it's like, eat more arsenic. It's supposed to be healthier for me, but actually, in a few studies, it is not.
Arsenic to help the boys and girls grow up big and strong.
Right.
Yeah, arsenic, poison.
But it is like one of those things where, what should I eat? What should I not eat? And we always talk about this.
Well, here's something you should eat or not eat. Today, bunch of specials at Burger King, Krispy Kreme, White Castle.
Oh, my God.
All for tax day. Yeah. Hey, by the way, at Hooters.
I love Krispy Kreme donuts.
Who doesn't love Krispy Kreme?
Them? They are so good.
Here's your Hooters special for today. $4.15. See, April 50. $4.50 for all appetizers at Hooters. So there you
Listen, I'm not anti-sweets, although I can't eat them right now because I gave them up for Lent. But, you know, and I actually do love donuts, but it's just like you have to have, when you eat them, maybe once a week, not every day.
How about the health food restaurant White Castle?
Oh, yeah.
Everything's 15% off today for being April 5th. Everything's 15% off.
Go smoke a doobie, eat up some White Castle.
Yeah, I love White Castle. I've never had White Castle. I've never had it sober. I've never had it sober, ever. I mean,
has anyone?
That's a fair
Brock.
question. You know, when I lived in Columbus, there in the great state of Ohio, in the shadow of the Ohio State University, there were White Castles. I don't know if there's even one anywhere near where we are.
I don't know.
Not anymore.
I don't recall seeing them. You know, but my grandfather always used to love getting the frozen ones, and then, you know, he'd pop them in the microwave and he'd be eating them for lunch. I'm like, what? This is not good food for you, Pops. What are you eating
Come
this
on,
for?
Pops. Oh, by the way, Krispy Kreme, Brock, just for the today's special, you get your second dozen for just the sales tax. The dozen's free. You pay the sales tax. You pay the tax. See, on tax.
Well, I love Krispy Kreme donuts, but not that much.
Well, I mean, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, right.
Oh, my gosh.
You know, so what's Burger King special? Whopper deal. Get a cheeseburger for 1 cent with any $1 purchase at Burger King. You see,
That's not a bad deal. I have to give him credit.
healthy food. Buffalo Wild Wings, $15 this month, and get a free sandwich anytime this month. So there you have it. A lot of tax specials out there. And Ivy,
Don't
I
you
commend
love tax day, Steve? It's the best day of the year.
Right, because it's off your plate now. I mean, for the last several days, you've been back and forth talking to Magic Jim and making sure everything's right.
I think we should, you know, fair tax is a good idea.
I think a fair tax would be great because that way we wouldn't have spent all this time filing taxes. Ivy, love you.
Love you, Steve. Thank you.
So is it Krispy Kreme or Hooters, guys? What are you thinking? I'll be right back. So, Senator Chris Van Hollen is a Democrat from Maryland. He's one of these far-left stooges. He said he's going to El Salvador to fight for Kilmer Abrego Garcia if he's not back in the U.S. by midweek. This is what he said. If Kilmer is not home by midweek, I plan to travel to El Salvador to check on his condition and discuss his release. He is a citizen of El Salvador, Senator. He is, by definition, home. He's also been found by not one, but two immigration courts to be a member of MS-13, the ruthless gang that is violent and horrible. A member of MS-13. There you have it. So, you know, Chris Van Hollen said he's going to go check on him. Maybe they could just keep him down there. Senator, just stay here, wouldn't you? Maybe he should check out the facilities. Maybe he should check out the quality of the prison. See if the food's any good. Just stick around for a while. Yeah, maybe he can just stay there. Anyhow, there you have it. Chris Van Hollen trying to do whatever he's trying to do. And who knows? These people will fight for illegals more than they will fight for you. They will fight for illegal aliens more than they will fight for you, and that's painfully obvious and damn sad. These are the same people who said, we can't fix the border without new legislation. Really? All-time record low for crossings. March 2025. So apparently, you can fix the problem. And really what the problem is, Democrats. The border is now closed. Oh, and they want every one of these 25 million illegals to have due process. No. You're in the country illegally, you're out. That's the president's prerogative. Fight the good fight, keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. And remember, only you, my friends, can save America.